Hello students, today we are going to start with the lesson separation of substances. So as already you know that the substances which we use in our daily life may have some impurities in them, and in order to remove those impurities we have to follow certain steps so that we can separate out the impurities from the substances that we are using in our everyday life. So, the different methods of separation are needed, and in this lesson we will study about the different measures and different steps of the separation. So, the number one common method is threshing, where the grains or seeds of the plants which are the sources of our food are the examples where we can see threshing is done. What is threshing? So, when the crops are harvested, like rice and wheat, when they are harvested, then the grains are attached with their stems. So, that is the stalk, and they have to be separated. So, this process is called as threshing. So, the process by which the grains are separated from the stalks or the stems, that is called as what? Threshing. So, the harvested crops are taken and the grains are separated from the stalk by the process of threshing, which can be done either by the hand or by the help of the machine. So, manually, I think all of you have seen how threshing is done. A person will hold a pile of crop on his hand, and then he will beat it on the rock or on a hard surface. When he will continuously beat, then what will happen? It will loosen and the grain will separate from the stalk. Because the grains are in dried form, they are matured, they are harvested, and so when they beat it on the hard surface, rock or in the soil, so what will happen? The crops will loosen and the grains will separate from the main stem, that is called the stalk. So, this is one process that is manual, and sometimes it is also done by the use of the bullocks. Next is the threshing is also done by the help of the machine, such as the combine harvesters. If you can see, this is a machine. Now, the threshing can be done by the machine also, which is known as combine harvester, which helps in reaping, threshing, cleaning the crop in one operation only. So, this is used in a large field, and the time taken is also very less. Now, the threshed grains may still contain some seed coverings and tiny leaves of stems, which can be called as the chaff. So, chaff has also to be separated by the process of winnowing. So, next we will come to the process of winnowing. So, next step in the separation of substances is winnowing. What happens here? The chaff is separated from the grain by the help of the wind or blowing air. So, you can see here in the picture, the lady is standing, and then she is having the winnowing basket where the grains are kept, and she is throwing the grains from a certain height. It is falling on the ground, and the chaff is being separated from the grain by the wind or the blowing air, and this process is called as what? Winnowing. Now, in this process, what happens? In the winnowing basket is taken where there is a mixture of chaff and grain that is taken, and the farmer or the family members will stand at a particular height and then try to throw or allow the grains to fall on the ground. So, the lighter chaff will be carried away by the wind and they will be separated out from the grains. Now, the chaff can be used for the food of the cattle, which is called the fodder for the cattle. And for this, direction of the wind is very, very important, because this wind will only try to separate the chaff from the grain. So, the direction of the wind is very important. It plays a very important role in the process of winnowing. So, you can also try the activity at home. How to do the winnowing? You can take a plate, rice and some tiny bits of paper. You can take a chair and some old newspaper. Then you have to go to the garden or in open ground, and you spread the sheets of newspaper on the ground. Now you take the rice, mix with the bits of paper in the plate, then stand on the chair and let the mixture fall slowly by shaking the plate. Slowly you have to shake the plate and let the mixture fall on the newspaper. So after some time, what you will see, the rice grains form a separate heat from the paper bit. So when you try to actually let the mixture fall on the newspaper, then what will happen, you can see the rice grains will come in a separate heat from the paper bits. So what is the conclusion? The blowing air or wind can be used to separate lighter particles like the paper from the heavier particles, that is the rice. If you compare the weight of the rice and with that of the paper is lighter. So they will both be separated by the action of the wind. So you have to stand at a particular height and you have to then allow the mixture of rice and paper to fall down. So in this way you can separate the lighter material and the heavier materials. The next process is hand picking. So hand picking is what, when you get some rice or wheat or pulses or whatever, any substances to be used at home, if you get it from the market, they can contain some impurities which are not wanted by us, which are unwanted and which can be very harmful. So there may be some stones, there may be some unwanted grains or anything in that particular thing that we have brought from the open market. And so if you look into that, like suppose one bowl of rice, if you look into that, you can see some stone particles are there and they can be easily spotted. So the method by which we can easily find out the impurities by hand and separate out, so that is called as what, hand picking. So here the main thing that has to be taken care of is what, the quantity of the mixture should be small. If you are doing it in a hand, if you are doing the process of hand picking, then we should take it in a dish or a plate or an utensil which is quite small. So the quantity should be very small. The unwanted substances also should be present in very small quantity. Suppose stones are there in the rice, it should not be much more, it should be much less, because we are doing it in hand. And then in size, shape and color, all of this unwanted substance, it should be different from that of the useful one. So we should be easily able to identify that which one is the impurity. Suppose if it is the stone, then the black color or brownish color, the size and shape should also be different from the rice or whatever materials we are trying to get from the separation method by hand picking. So if unwanted substance is there, that should be of different size, shape and color from the useful one. If suppose there is one bowl of rice and stone is added to it or something else is added to it, we must be able to distinguish all this that is present in the rice. Otherwise hand picking method will not be fruitful in this case. So the next process is sieving. So here you can see this is a net-like structures that we all have at home. So when there are different components of mixture of different sizes, they can also be separated by the method of sieving. So the smaller components will pass down into the bowl and the larger components will remain there. So maybe the stone or something extra, the shafts or husks can be present, and so they can be collected here, and the clear, the pure one that we need for our future use will be collected in the bowl which is placed here. This method is called as sieving. So we can use this method at home to separate the bran from the flour. Bran means the slightly bigger particles that is present in the flour. But wheat flour, which we use for making the rotis, which are very healthy for our intestine, so we should not sieve it because the bran is necessary, because it gives us what? Fiber. And you all know fiber is very important part of our diet as it helps in clearing our intestine. So this acts as a roughage. This gives a bulk of the intestine. It will help in clearing our intestine. So it is better to remove the visible impurities if it is present in the flour by hand only without sieving it in case of wheat flour. So we can also separate the stones, smaller particles of stones from the sand at construction sites. So in construction site, like if there is a construction of house or a building or whatever, any construction site, if you have seen the laborers always sieve the sand because sand is mixed with the small stones, pebbles, and so this has to be separated out for making the construction. So this is also the process of sieving, by which the pebbles are separated from the sand. So here the stones and pebbles present in the mixture remain in the sieve, and the fine sand particles pass through the holes of the sieve. When you are sieving sand, so the stones, pebbles will remain on the sieve. I think all of you have seen the larger sieves that they carry, the laborers, while they are working in the construction sites. They always do this to clear out the sand from those pebbles and stones. So this is also the process of sieving. Right. So next the activity is what? Flour, powdered chalk, old newspaper, and a sieve should be taken. So see, flour, any flour you can take. So when you sieve the flour on the newspaper, you have to while sieving, husk is separated or any other impurity will be separated. Now husk is the covering of the seed, okay. Chaff is the extra material that is present along with the seeds, like stems or leaves part, and husk is the outer covering of the seed. Or there may be some species of stems or leaves also, that means extra material like chaffs. Take a small amount of flour and mix it with the fine chalk powder. So you take some amount of flour and then mix it with some chalk powder. Then you sieve the mixture. Can the chalk powder be separated? But chalk powder is very fine dust, and also the flour is also very fine dust, so they cannot be separated. But the larger particles like husk or any other impurities can be easily separated by the method of sieving, because husk contains bigger particles than the flour, so they can be retained on the sieve. But the chalk powder is also similar to flour, so sieving will not help in that case. So how it will be helpful and where it will be helpful? Wherein we can see that the sizes of the particles are different, then only sieving will be of any help. Otherwise there will be no help, because in sieving what we see that there should be different particles, should be of different sizes, otherwise separation will not be done. So just now we have discussed what? The process of separation of substances, like what are the steps we have discussed, what are the methods? Threshing, winnowing, hand picking, and sieving. So I think all of you have understood up to this much. So in the next lecture I will be discussing about sedimentation, decantation, and the rest of the processes.